Coming up on the Tech Ledger, Louise Leavey, Finance First CIO and fresh inductee to the Global CI 100, on why tech is not a cost centre. We dig into the millions wasted on forced upgrades, how to turn transformation into continuous evolution, and the leadership move for dealing with mood Hoovers. Louise lifts the lid on ESG that's measured, not marketed, and the story of breaking a multi-billion-dollar contract to unlock digital change. Plus, her surprise cheese of choice. All that next on the Tech Ledger. Louise Leavey, hello, welcome to the Tech Ledger.
Hi, Scott, and it's really great to be here. I'm so excited.
Yay! I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to your second out the blocks, which I'm super excited about. But we've uploaded the interview with Andy Gummersall this week, and I had two bits of feedback which were quite interesting. One was from my wife, who watched the video this morning, and then her feedback was, yeah, it's actually quite good. In fact, she said, Andy's really, really good. He comes across really well. And then she said, but why did you video it? And I thought, after 30 years of marriage, that's her saying, in effect, in brackets, you've got a face for the radio. I'd prefer not to watch you interviewing anybody. Well, or I don't know, maybe she was criticising the quality of my guest. So I am delighted that you are here, Louise, and obviously,
well, you saved the best for second.
I have saved the best for second. There might not be a third at this rate if it gets any worse. And then the second bit of feedback I got was from my middle daughter's boyfriend. And if he gives me any more feedback, he might soon to be ex-boyfriend, but that's a different discussion. And he said, yeah, it was really good. He said, but I'd like to know a little bit more about Andy and his business, N2S. So, Louise Leavey, I'm going to give you the mic for as long as you like, and just tell us a bit in your own words about you and your career. But you have to mention one of three things in your introduction in the theme of the Tech Ledger, and it has to be music related, sport related, or cheese related.
Oh, okay. I should
have a big klaxon.
So yeah, okay. Well, probably two of them I'm not going. Oh no, actually, I can do the sports one tangentially. I can. So you probably wish you hadn't handed the mic over to me, Scott, but because I can talk for England, as you know. But I will try and not to make it too long. But a little bit about me. So I'm old now. I've had my career. I'm at the end of my career.
Don't say that.
I am.
It doesn't show on video.
But it. Oh, thank you. But what it does do is makes me an older, wiser woman. And you try and tell that to your children that you're older and wiser, and they go, "You know nothing, Mum." It's fine, okay. But I started out working when I was 16 because my family came from a really poor background, and I lived in a council house. So I'm just getting the violins out there.
Yeah, I'll get some really good music over for this.
Yeah, that'll be good. Yeah, get that in the background.
Diamond bass, our tune.
So I've come from a family. It was from a council house, and bullied at school, and everybody told me I wasn't going to make anything of myself. And I just thought, you know what, I am going to prove them wrong. So I was lucky enough to start my career in a company called Monsanto, which was a pharmaceutical company. So at 16, I joined there, and some really wonderful guy took me under his wing and mentored me, and I became a qualified accountant. And that was probably 40 years ago, more than 40 years ago, actually. I'll give you a guess and get your calculator out. But even 40 years ago, I was doing technology on the side of my desk when I was training to be an accountant. So I did the first SAP implementation. So we were doing process in, process out. We were using information, and nothing's changed. We're still doing automation, but we're calling it AI now. Yeah. We're still using information, but we're calling it data. But yeah, so really that was my start of my career. Became a qualified accountant, cantering through. I then spent a number of years in telco. With NTL, Telewest merger, and it became Virgin Media, where I first came across IBM, and maybe you, Scott.
Maybe
probably. And then I moved into financial services, and I had a stint at HMRC. That was the most exciting role in my whole career. Now, you're never going to hear that again, ever. But I was lucky enough to have gone into HMRC when the austerity measures were there. Self-assessment online was happening, but the uptake was really low and slow. And my challenge was to digitalise HMRC more while cutting costs. But we had a major outsourcing contract with Capgemini, Fujitsu, and Accenture worth £1.6 billion. And there was no way we were going to digitalise more and cut costs unless we broke that contract. For me, the crowning jewel of my career was I was lucky enough to persuade the ministers the best thing we needed to do was break this contract that had another 10 years to run. So really, that was my exciting part of my career. And then finally, I then moved into financial services and I'd run a transformation at Viva, EBRD, HMRC, HSBC, and I just finished at Metro.
Wow. Do you know, I think that's amazing. There's so much there it could pick up on. Persuading ministers to do anything, for the greater good must have been a huge challenge. And I dare say we'll come back to that. I am trying to think. I think I've probably known you for 20, 25 years.
I think so. Yes,
And,
yes.
it is really interesting. I think, we talk about, and again, we'll come back to this, women smashing through that glass ceiling and stuff like that. And you are the epitome and one of the shining lights of having done that.
Oh,
And I love your backstory, just like, everybody's got a bit of a backstory, but having taken that challenge on and doing some hugely influential and high profile jobs and I'm doing that dreaded thing because I'm not a professional journo or interviewer, but I'm now rattling on. And it's like, because I know from our recent conversations how much you're on the stage and how much in demand you are to speak at events, to do awards and everything like that. And every time I see that, I just think, God, brilliant! I'm just like so happy for that you have smashed through that ceiling and you're such great demand now.
yeah, I
Um,
mean, I just love. I think when somebody does something good for you and helped you in your career, it's time for me to give back, and that's what I am absolutely loving at the moment. I've done charity work in Indonesia, supporting women, empowering women. I judge technology. I'm mentoring 3 CIOs at the moment, which I'm absolutely loving. So yeah, it's time for me to say, like, people help me. So it's my turn to help other people.
yeah, and I think that's so important, and I think it's great, and I think it's a role model because it's very easy as we come to our kind of like what is it they say, quarter three in our life and existence and role and everything else that we do think about giving back. A lot of people talk about giving back, but it's not as easy as what a lot of people imagine it's going to be. People say, I'll become a Ned or I'll become a mentor or a coach, and a very good friend of mine who is head of HR for a big tech business. And I said to her, I'm going to go into coaching. And she said, why do you think people would ever want you to coach them? And I just thought, no, but she actually said it in a very challenging way. And, it made me really think hard about the value that we do bring in refining that as opposed to just being, hey, I'm, pushing 60. Surely people will listen to me. You've got to have something that you give back as well as just saying, hey, I'm going to go and give back. But I think with all your experience, I think it's great, and you have seen so much change in the industry and I think it's good. Your journey from finance, and I knew you as being that kind of like person that would get right underneath the numbers before people would talk about getting underneath the numbers, to then transformation, to then CIO. You've kind of done the whole lot. What's the biggest challenge you see in how organizations are approaching technology today? Because you've probably seen a lot of change and a lot of different kind of like new paradigms, I say. So what's the big challenge today?
Well, I mean, I think because like you quite rightly say, I mean, I have been a finance person. I've dealt with commercials and transformation. And I think I'm quite a rare beast in terms of a CIO because there's not too many CIOs that are also deep in the finances and deep in the commercials. But I think the biggest challenge most CIOs have, and I've seen this in most of my roles, is one, really, really getting to grips and partnering with the business and making sure that technology becomes an enabler to what the business is going to be trying to achieve and not a cost center.
Yep.
Many organizations have gone in, technology is just a cost center, and never to the twain should meet when it comes to business and technology. But I think also it's really important for a CIO to know his numbers inside out. And, there's always in every organization, I think the biggest number one problem at the moment is there's never enough money. There's never any money to do all those things that, the business demanding all of this to grow revenue or whatever, but there's never any money to focus on the technology to enable that. So I think I feel that what I bring into the agenda when I'm going in to do my transformations is I manage to find those low-hanging fruit opportunities to take out cost, wasted money, and there's a lot of wasted money in technology in run that could be freed up to enable the business then to do their growth. So I think the number one problem in most organizations is there's never any money, and money's being wasted on the wrong things, and there's not enough people to think I'm a game changer as a CIO, and I'm going to change that. I'm going to find those wasted monies, and I'm going to invest it and help the business.
So that's really interesting. So there was a wee bit of echo there. Do you think that that's changed, or do you think our ability to grasp that problem has changed? Because I've worked across industry. I've worked for a number of suppliers. I've consulted client side, and I think we always used to go in and say, hey, listen, you've got to invest money up front. You invest 20 million and we'll save you 100. I sense, I don't want to kind of lead the witness here, but I sense that clients are getting a bit smart now. Enterprises are getting a bit smart and saying, listen, I don't have 20. I mean, I'd love your 100 million, but I don't have 20 to invest in this transformation. Is that the evolution you've seen in the industry now, that we have to kind of change that rhetoric and find to save or cut to save, because, and it's not the same just cutting for the hell of it to take cost out that we maybe saw in yesteryear?
No, that's 100% what you're saying, spot on. And I just think, especially in the financial services sector at the moment, there is so much wasted money, both on run, but on change. So when the big suppliers are doing these forced upgrades, that if you think about 30-40 million pound on forced upgrades, it's going to deliver no value, no extra value. In fact, it's going to cause more disruption. Or do we want to spend that 30 million pound on introducing some new great smart AI, or some new innovation that's going to help deliver the business? And I think in the past it used to be, as CIOs, we used to almost bow down to the big suppliers and say, oh yes, I'm really scared, you're telling me I've got to do an upgrade, so here I was 30 million pounds to do an upgrade. But what that's doing is taking the money away from change. And then when you go into your change and say to the business, they say, what do you want to do? And they say, well, I want to do these 20 things. And we go, oh, sorry, the cupboard's empty, we've got no money, we can't prioritize your projects because we must do these 30 million pound upgrades. And I think CIOs now beginning to see that they need to be different. They need to act differently at the moment, and that's something I've seen many, many times.
Yeah, and I think it also takes you to a point about ESG and sustainability, right? And you know that me, I kind of get on the platform a little bit about this at times. And what role do you think that sustainability and ESG play in technology strategy today? And do you think that we are, putting that up front in the agenda enough compared to what would have been, 5-10 years ago? How's that evolving in your mind?
Well, I've been a non-exec director on a number of boards actually in the financial services, and it is something that the board directors are thinking about. But the difficulty, I think most people are saying is, well, what is it? What does it mean? And how do we measure it? And how do we know, what we're measuring is successful? I can almost take myself back to when I was at HMRC, and this was over 10 years ago. But another agenda item in government was, carbon emission savings, and we've got to save, 25% carbon emissions, and nobody really knew how to do it. But in HMRC, in fact, I won an award for green IT at HMRC, being able to identify how you can measure savings. Now, obviously, the simplest one is moving away from the data centers and moving into the cloud, and there's big green IT savings then. And then it was like, well, which laptops do we buy? Do we buy this one or this one because this one's got a green saving? But it's being able to be really transparent and measure those green IT opportunities. And obviously that's one end of the GESG. The other one I'm very passionate about is diversity. So doing everything you can to make sure that you've got the diverse everything in the organization, and it's not just lip service. It's about generally doing everything you can to support females, or in terms of diversity and everything you need to do. So I think that it is really important. People talk about it, and a lot of people at the moment are just doing it as lip service. And I think we need to find a real way of being able to identify what it is, explain what it is. And if the organisation has set itself goals, it is able to measure it, and it does actually do it. And it's not just lip service. And I
Yeah.
think that's what I'm hearing a lot at the moment.
I think that's true, and I think greenwashing as it is like just people, it's the marketing department making stuff up, and unfortunately, there's too much of the industry. I'm really glad you touched on the DEI thing actually, because again, firstly, I don't think a lot of people know what ESG actually stands for, and I wish we had called it. I've said this a few times in the past few weeks, GSE, because it all starts with good governance, and then
Yeah,
the S for your social agenda, focusing on your people, and then the E, environmental, and again, I'm pretty passionate about this, but the people agenda is huge, and the people agenda in terms of the future of work as we go, as we're rolling out more and more AI, people give it a bit
yeah,
of lip service, as you say, but the DEI agenda, and again, back to your kind of roots and how you've kind of built your career, I think it is so important with it, with the global workforce, with balancing the workforce, with ethnicity, with, people with, I hate the term, but disabilities, and how important a contribution that different people can make. So, I know that again, you are very, very passionate about this when you get on the platform and you talk about it a lot. I just, what's your perspective on how it's becoming? Do you feel that it's starting to get more traction now in large corporates? And do you feel that suppliers should be pushing that agenda a bit more as well? I mean, we both know Origina very well. So,
yeah.
how does that play into your playbook?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I can tell you a little story, but I went for an interview about 5 years ago in a very big US bank. And I was in the interview, and the guy, I'd had about 6 interviews. I think this is really crazy. Why am I going through so many interviews? This is nuts. The last interview, this line manager said to me, "Just want to let you know, we are really very much supporters of ESG and diversity in the workplace." He said, "Even such an extent that we have a KPI and it measures how many interviews females have." And I went, "Ah, okay, then that's it. I don't want to work at this organization." And it was, there really has been that we've got a KPI in the organization, and the men say, "Well, okay, we've got to have a KPI of how many women we interview." Well, if we interview the same woman 6 times, then we get tick box, don't we? And I just think that was really sad. I mean, I've had a tough career. I've really had to work so hard to get where I am today and stand up to many doubters and mood hoovers that have always put me down. And I just think, right, well, if there is an opportunity for a female alongside a male, the females might need a little bit more help and coaching and mentoring and support, because they will, even in this day and age, they will still have a tough career. They will still find it really hard. So there is that extra piece that I think that the organization needs to do, and give coaching or mentoring, or find people like myself who are prepared to give their time up to help people. And then going back to the suppliers, yeah, I think financial service organizations where they're regulated, and you check your suppliers to make sure that you've got the data quality or the GDPR measures or whatever for compliance purposes. I think we should do the same on ESG, that we invest in suppliers that also themselves truly investing in ESG as well.
Yeah, do you know, I think I might have said this to you last week. See, when I approach people for working with them, I kind of, and without cutting my nose off to spite my face, I want to work with people that have got similar values, and so I did a course in business sustainability last year, and my kids say that I'm not an expert. I'm just an enthusiast with a badge now, which is actually one of the more positive things my children say about me. But I am quite selective, and when I do approach people, and that can be at an individual or a corporate level, I want to make sure people have that kind of similar value system, because that's how we drive change. And this is what a lot of the tech ledger it's about. I want to talk about the debits and credits. I want to talk about the yin and the yang. I want to talk about, and I know that you're a progressive. I know that you're an innovator and you want change, but balancing that change and the innovation and the use of AI, for example, because that's what we'll talk about, with the kind of impact it has on infrastructure and scarce resources.
Mm-hmm.
So it's making sure we've got, as I say, both parts of that conversation in one flip. Just to move it on a bit, so one of the things that I'm doing in these calls is I do a little bit of Tech Ledger Exposed, and just to sort of understand a bit more about
I saw you in the bath. That That was the beginning of the exposure. Is it each time it gets worse?
I know exactly. Well, yeah. Let's hope this whole platform ends sooner than later. But we had a chat last week about women's rugby, didn't we? And
Oh
things
yes,
that go on in women's rugby.
I didn't answer the music, sport, or cheese, did I?
You didn't, which is
I didn't.
and I have noted. It has been noted. You've got to stick to the plan, or we keep going.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, boss.
Yeah, big clap. So the Women's Rugby World Cup is on at the moment, and I know that you've been passionate about women's rugby, and we chatted about it last week. But if you were lining up in the England World Cup starting 15, who would you want alongside you in the pack? Would you want an accountant, a transformation leader, or a CIO? And you can pick one of three. You need to kind of justify it, and then you might, if you want to throw in a couple of names, well, actually, we better not do that. We don't have enough disclaimers.
No. Well, that's a really interesting point there, Scott. So, obviously, me having all those three dimensions in me makes me, I'd probably say, quite unique. I think a transformation person. But a transformation person that has financial skills. No, I'd say a transformation person because, I mean, a finance person, as much as I love being a finance person, you can be a bean counter, but you're not really a creative challenger, stepper forward person.
Yeah.
I think a CIO is probably really good on tech, but a lot of CIOs that I've known, do like to transform, but whether they've necessarily got all the right skills. Whereas I'd say a transformation person wraps everything around, and it is about taking the organisation to the next stage. So I'd probably say a bean counter. Don't ever hold me to this, as I am a CFO myself.
We'll edit that out.
Edit that. I bet you won't. The CFO finance person is great for counting the numbers. The tech person is great for, making it happen in terms of the technology change. But the transformation person really is that person that's creative and finding the innovative technology that makes sure that the business delivers what it needs to do. So that's the person I would want standing next to me.
Brilliant. I love it. So just to build on the kind of analogy and teaming and sport and stuff like that. Looking back, what's the most important lesson you've learned about leading teams through change? I mean, you've gone through a huge amount of change personally, professionally, and the organisations you've worked with have gone through huge amount of change, which I think makes you the person what you are. What's the most important lesson you've learned about leading teams in particular through change?
I've learned this by doing about 7 transformations. By the time I've got to my 7th, I'm thinking I'm learning it now. But it's about being really great at communicating what you're trying to achieve, just upfront. Also listening to the people in the teams that have been there and running the processes, but also dispelling the mood hoovers. I've always had mood hoovers, and it slows the whole transformation down. So you've got to accept that there's going to be people that are going to come on the bus, and there's going to be people that really don't want to be on the bus. Yeah. And then there's people who are sitting there waiting to see what you do and where it goes. So I think number one is communication, bring people on the journey with you. But accept that there are people that really, whatever you try and do or say, will never want to be on that journey. So you've got to accept there are going to be a few people that don't get on that bus.
Yeah, and so I think that's a really good observation, especially around transformation, because transformation by its very nature can be difficult because you're going from a place that you don't want to be to a place you do want to be, and trying to get everybody on the bus, as they say, to get to that point is hard. And you must have had a lot of challenges around that, and what's your bit of advice for wannabe leaders or wannabe transformation execs when you come up against those kind of people roadblocks, if you will? I mean, you're a great communicator, yeah. You're great to get your point across, and I know how fantastic your network is. I've seen it firsthand how many people in the industry. I always think I'm a good networker, but oh my goodness, you put me to shame. So how do you manage those kind of like doubters or naysayers or difficult moments from a people and personality perspective?
Yeah, I first of all, one of the things I'm trying to do is change the word from transformation to evolution.
Right.
Because I think the minute you go in and say, I'm coming in to transform the organization, everybody runs away a mile or starts trying to throw mud at you. Or, yeah, oh, yeah, we've been there, we've had that done to us hundreds of times and nobody's lasted. So I try and sort of like set the tone now is this is about evolution. You might have been through hundreds of transformations, but this is about taking the organization on a journey and using technology to enable you to do that. And then you as people that are in the organization are going to learn some amazing skills. You're going to learn about how to implement data and AI, etc. So I think what my first point of call on all of this is understanding where's the business, what's the strategy, what's the business trying to do, where are we today within technology, and what is the gap, and therefore how do we close that gap and make it really, really clear. It's not about transformation anymore. It's about evolution. It's about taking the organization on a journey continuously. It's like I often say on stage, transformation's not for Christmas, it's for life. But it doesn't happen like that. Organizations keep thinking every 4 years they've got to go through another transformation. And it's like, what disruption is there? So build a target operating model that makes it sustainable. And it's about continuous improvement and innovation. And that, I think, changes the landscape and the agenda.
So, thank you for that. And just to pick up on that a little bit, because something resonates in that whole piece. And again, thinking back to your experience and what you've done. So, you've come from, I don't know, I don't know public sector well enough, but HMRC is probably one of the biggest departments in the public sector. And then you've worked in banks, in financial institutions, insurance companies. So, resilience and risk is a huge topic for these. You're talking public purse, revenue. I mean, HMRC is kind of pseudo bank in some respects, isn't it? And then you work in bank proper. So my question to you is, how do you balance that? You've used the word a number of times around innovation and now evolution, not transformation, with resilience and risk. How do you get the balance right across those different kind of almost opposing forces at times?
I think risk is really important to me in everything I've done in transformation. And it is about, in every step of the way on this journey, it's been really clear what the risks are and how you'd mitigate them, and just make sure that's part of your dashboard of your transformation evolution program. But it's also getting, the chief risk officers on board as well. So every step of the way, you've got somebody that can hold your feet to the fire and you make it really clear. I mean, I've been in organisations where there's been redundancies at the end of it, and some of it's been in German organisations where you've got unions and, there's huge issues regarding that. You need to know all of this stuff up front. So you're managing all of those risks, but building them into your plans. So, there is ways around it, but you've just got to be, again, transparency and clear.
And do you think you're kind of, it's interesting thing about planning. Do you think your numbers background and your kind of almost methodological, is that right?
Yeah.
Approach to things helps you in planning? Because I kind of agree with you, and I'm not the best planner in the world, but having that, what is it, fail to plan to fail type thing.
Yes. That's an army quote, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. I do, everything's about plan, and also the financials. Every time I presented, this is the evolution that we're going to go on, this is the cost and this is the benefit. And I was really, really clear because of my financial background. I can look almost over every stone and work out really creatively the value that's going to be delivered. And benefit realisation tracking afterwards is really important as well. Because if you say you're going to deliver, £50 million worth of savings, you've really got to be able to deliver it. So my mentor has always been, under promise and over deliver. Because there's been so many people I know that, I've worked with the chief transformation officers that promised the moon and then delivered 1/10 of it and then been made look really stupid and then lose all the support internally.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? I like that, under promise and over deliver. It's a good adage. So going back to my exposed sort of like
oh yes.
questioning. So you've just been named a global CIO 100 winner, which is like, if I had sort of
It's
pyrotechnics
only
for
taken
the
40
music.
years.
Well, amazingly. Yeah. So you are a big cheese. You are a grand fromage. I don't even
Cheese,
know. Is it?
cheese. We'll
Yeah,
come back to
cheese.
cheese.
So, as a grand fromage, what cheese would you like to be in another life?
What cheese? Oh, I like camembert. I love camembert, and I love it baked with cranberry sauce. So that's what I'll
Oh,
be, a camembert.
yeah.
But none of this cheese rolling down the hill or anything like that. Baked cheese, lovely.
I think I can't remember. I was in a debate. We were talking to somebody. We were in a bit of a quiz at the weekend, and we were talking about sports, and then like whether cheese rolling was actually a sport or not. And that it just
It
seems like
is.
an
I've
odd
seen it on
question.
TV somewhere. I think it does exist.
Yeah, but is it a sport or a game? And I can't remember. I'm going to have to go back and check that out.
Yeah.
And maybe that should be a future tech ledger.
Cheese rolling. What about haggis rolling? Cheese and haggis rolling.
Haggis tossing I do just to follow the whole diversity and inclusion strategy. Now that nobody in Scotland will talk to me because I've had Andy Gummersall on, and an England World Cup winner. I've had a great leading light female on now, but I need to get a jock on at some point. I need to start bringing these things together and get somebody. If I've got any Scottish friends left, that'll come in and have a conversation with us. So final point on advice, as I say, like, whole new talent, generations coming through. There's little Louises out there who kind of, want to go and forge a career for themselves. And, we talk about our kids quite a lot as well offline. So what's the bit of advice you would give to anybody starting out today in terms of, like what you've experienced over the past years in your career?
I think imposter syndrome sets in, all the time, and you need to get that out of your mind. Because I think what I would say is, don't ever give up. If you believe passionately in something, start on route A and keep going until you get to route Z, until you achieve what you want to achieve. In almost every transformation or evolution, or even, breaking that Aspire contract, I had everybody telling me, give up, it's not going to work, you won't be able to do it. And I knew passionately it was the right thing to do. So I would never give up, and I kept on going. And I think the other thing is, if you can find somebody to mentor or coach you, I think that is, a really good thing as well, just as a sounding board, just to, does this make sense? Is this right? Or because sometimes you don't always trust your own instinct.
I think you're going to get hundreds of calls after this.
I don't mind.
Hundreds of people actually.
There's 7 days a week, and there's 24 hours in a day, and I'm mentoring 3 today, so plenty of room.
always room for a few others.
Exactly.
Louise, can I just say thanks ever so much? I love talking to you, and can I? And it's not just because you're a successful female. It's just because you're successful, and you're. I think you're a great motivator. You're a great leader. You've had such a brilliant career, and I do think, and again, the kind of women smashing through glass ceilings and stuff like that is so important. But it's not the only important thing. I think what you've done in terms of moving from your background, moving through the different roles you've done, and worked in real change environments is just incredible. And I think you're an inspiration. I think so many kind of young and next generation leaders can learn so much from you. So thank you for joining me on the Tech Ledger. And I'll let you get on with the rest of your coaching this afternoon. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much. I've really loved the Tech Ledger. It's incredible. So I can't wait to see where it goes, and how you bring everybody along on this Tech Ledger. It's amazing.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Louise.